What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench Podcast Network and channel. Giving a shout out to the rest of the crew: Shad, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right, that's right. For everyone who's tuning in, we always thank you for supporting Behind the Bench and subscribing to the channel. Help making this show the best that it can be. And we're getting pretty close to 3,000 subscribers. And hopefully we reach that milestone by the end of this month, right in the heart of the summer. And we really appreciate it. We really do. We started this channel, back in the beginning or late 2022. And things are really picking up. And I believe it has been a success. As we like to say, quality over quantity. That's what it's about. Let's get right to it, man. And sorry I've not had the time to, do any, provide any content or any commentary. But the fellow members of the crew, they are holding down the fort. And they've been producing great videos covering basketball, WNBA, NBA, and the like. But I want to briefly touch on this, man. And this is really upsetting me. Los Angeles Lakers are on the brink. We may as well get right to it and cut to the chase. This franchise is on the brink of collapse. It's on the brink of the destruction. And you always hear one of these talking heads say, when it comes to this guy, everybody know what I'm talking about. The guy that keeps on changing the jersey number every other year. The guy who they brought to this franchise and got rid of everybody in sight. Had the deepest, most versatile, most talented young core in the NBA under the one and done era collectively to be shipped out. The guy that's led this franchise to overhaul the roster 6 years straight. The guy that has forced the issue to where 40 different players have been included in trades. The same guy who led this franchise to give up 6 number 1 picks since 2019, the rights to 6 number 1 picks, and about a dozen or so second round picks. So we're talking about close to 20 draft picks that have been given up. This is a guy who the franchise was led to believe that he could turn anyone into a championship contender overnight by his sheer presence on the team. This is a guy who the experts say that franchises need him more than he needs franchises. So the evidence suggests that everything I just said, the opposite is true. The opposite is true. And this is a call to all Laker fans, whoever come across this video. We are on the brink of destruction. Myself personally, as well as other members of the crew who are fans of this story franchise, we were never in favor of bringing this dude to the team. We want to make the record known. We want to let fans of this guy know it's too much chaos. It's too much stress. It's too much blame deflecting. It's too much scapegoating. It's too much roster overhaul. It's too much hype. It's too much talk. It's too much prognostication. It's too much front running. And what's missing out of all of this, when the smoke cleared, when the dust settled, is winning. That one season in 2020 that culminated in a bubble has set this franchise back 10 years. You want proof? Here goes proof. The Lakers ran out of their own talent by the end of the 2020-21 season, when they lost in the first round to the Phoenix Suns, who went on to advance to the finals that year and played Milwaukee. Right? And Milwaukee won that series to become champion, led by Giannis Antetokounmpo. See, Giannis really led his team to the championship. Now, he got some support along the way. Chris Middleton hit some timely shots for them. Drew Holiday played some great defense and whatnot. Other contributors, P.J. Tucker played sound perimeter defense when his number was called. But when it was money time, the superstar led him to the title. We ain't seen none of that since all this started, man. I'm sorry, man. And what's troubling is, outside of a handful of people, mainly on YouTube, that conducts podcasts, live streams on the frequent, outside of those voices, you hear no prominent figures be honest with the fans of this franchise and let them know that the gig is up. The gig has been up. So because prominent voices do not want to be forthright, what's happening is this GM right here, Rob Pelinka, he's been on the phone trying to orchestrate moves and trades. He has conducted 15 years worth of trades in the span of 5 seasons. He is under more stress and under the gun, no pun intended, than any executive in any field of endeavor in this country. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. But to remind people out there of what was said about this man last year, right? Or let's say the middle part of the 22-23 season, when the Lakers received a flux of young players, right? Through, let's just call it divine intervention. Let's just call it that, right? And they got a temporary boost on the competition. And they finished the season by advancing to the Western Conference Finals and lost in 4 straight games to the Denver Nuggets. It misled the fans into believing. The prominent figure said that the Lakers have brought in and brought forth a new young core that was being established, knowing that the real young core was kicked out the door. It was deemed expendable. Fans led to believe, oh man, we didn't need that young core after all. The real young core. I'm talking about their own. I'm talking about those young men who were born into the NBA through the doors and the channel of the Los Angeles Lakers. Let's just say through the womb of the Los Angeles Lakers. And they was snatched away. They weren't snatched away, they was given up. Willingly. So when they made that trade, mid-season trade, to give that man a brand new squad, fans said, okay, we made it to the Western Conference Finals, and hey, only team that can beat us is Denver, right? And next year we're gonna win it all. They brought back D'Angelo Russell, Rudy Hachimura, Malik Beasley, who was gone by season's end. Mo Bamba, who was gone by season's end. Jared Vanderbilt, who was removed from the starting lineup by the end of the Western Conference Finals versus Denver because he couldn't match up against Aaron Gordon. And then this offseason, Rob Pelinka, with his past offseason, Rob Pelinka signed Taurean Prince, Jackson Hayes, Taurean Prince from the Minnesota Timberwolves, Jackson Hayes from the New Orleans Pelicans, Christian Wood from the Dallas Mavericks, Gabe Vincent from the Miami Heat, and what's your boy's name? Cam Reddish from the Portland Trailblazers. And the prominent figures, the talking head said, oh, the Lakers had the best offseason of any team in the NBA. They deserve an A+ for their efforts. Rob Pelinka. Rob on his job. Rob Pelinka is the executive of the year. He pulled a rabbit out of his hat. He is the man. We love Rob. And all that dissipated to what we see today. Their front office is being lambasted, criticized, chastised, demeaned, mocked, hated on. But they're not the root of the problem, man. Everybody got to take the fall when this stuff don't work out and you finish the season empty-handed. When we was told and sold that we was going to strike that pot of gold every single year. That's what we were told when all this started. But if you look at the guy's track record, it always showed that he needed a super team to win. And his fans know this. His fans know this. And not only did he need a super team to win, but he lost 6 championships in his career. 6. He lost his first 2 championships. He was 0-2 in championship play in the NBA. And the second loss, suffering defeat on the league's first ever super team. Contrary to what people trying to say about past great teams, Boston Celtics, Lakers, the 83 76ers, the 70 Knicks, the 70 Knicks or the 72 Knicks, or the 77 Portland Trailblazers, or the 86 Celtics, the Bad Boy Pistons, the Chicago Bulls, the 94-95 Houston Rockets, the San Antonio Spurs, Golden State. Golden State had won a championship before they acquired Kevin Durant. The first ever super team kicked off in Miami in 2010. The summer 2010. So you ask yourself, the fact is he's never had a winning percentage in championship play. Never. The best he reached was 500, and that was on a super team in Miami that played in a talent-deficient Eastern Conference, where they may have had one adversary to worry about per postseason, and that was during the Miami years. By the time he returned back to Cleveland, there was nothing there. No superstars to speak of. Maybe an all-star here and there, or a young Paul George, but no superstars. No Jason Tatums that we see today, or Giannis Antetokounmpo that we see today. Nothing like that. Or even a Joel Embiid, where you have to go through the attrition to advance to the championship round. A clear path was provided, essentially. And the Lakers The Laker front office, management, the GM has given him everything. Everything. He wanted the young core gone. They got rid of them. All of them. Within a span of less than 3 years. The last remaining true young core member was Kyle Kuzma, and they were trying to get rid of him the year of the bubble. What do they got to show for this, man? This has been painstaking, man. And for these people to constantly rip on and crap on this guy when he's done everything, man. And even, okay, I'm going to bring up them drafting this man's son at a later time. But during that press conference when he announced he was drafting that man's son, he made mention of the fact that there's not really any more moves that the Lakers can make, but the fans, his fans, a lot of the fans that support this franchise, they failed to understand the reality. The franchise mortgages itself off 10 times over. You mean to tell me this is 2024 and they're being pressed to try to make a trade to include 2 first-round picks in 2029, and now you're going to dig into next decade to help this dude win in 2024? So when 2029 and 2031 arrive and we have nothing, it's all depleted and people won't be able to complain. But this new CBA is evening out the playing field, and you're not going to be able to manipulate and skirt the system any further. The Lakers right now, after they sign this dude once again, they are operating above the second tax apron imposed by the league, which means when a team's salary cap surpasses the second tax apron, there are more restrictions placed on who they can sign. They cannot use their mid-level exemption to sign a, whatever they consider the best available free agent at that moment. Someone that's used to making like $20, $25 million. Take his name off the list. What more can this man do? What more can the owner capitulate to? Now, if people want to criticize them, it's because they have been forced and pressured and compelled to give this guy everything that he wants or try to, and it's not a guarantee. They're not winning. That means the gig is up, and this conference is getting stronger and stronger. And now these small market teams have established themselves in a way where they are now leading the way. And they've taken that mantle and ran with it in the West. They have surpassed any team out there that is in win now mode and then sacrifice everything in sight. Them championship days, aspirations are done, man. Fans of the franchise need to understand and accept the reality that the gig is up. It's been up. Do you want to take away from future fans of this franchise 5 and 7 years down the line where they won't have anything to root for? Is it worth it trying to help this guy win when he has a propensity to fall short? Let's go back to 2022. When they brought in all the big names, a team that featured 5 top 75 players, unheard of. And in the modern NBA. Right? They brought back members of the team that won in the bubble in 2020. They brought back 3 players from their team. They brought in DeAndre Jordan. They brought in Kendrick Nunn from the Miami Heat. They brought back Trevor Ariza, who was a contributor and a starter for the 2009 Laker championship team. They were predicted to go to the finals and face Brooklyn Nets for the championship. And this GM said when he signed all them players, it was about 9 or 10 players, because at the time there was only like 2-3 players under contract. 2-3 players under contract. There's only 2 players remaining from their team that in the bubble. That guy that they keep capitulating to, and the other guy who the future was mortgaged up to acquire. And people think that's not problematic. So you had these prognosticators who said they was going to win 70 games. Not only did they fall well short of 70, they didn't even finish the season at 500. They did not even qualify for the play-in. They should have put it into it then. See, all this going on now to try to maintain is they're being led to continue to borrow from a future that they've already mortgaged away. They mortgaged away 7 years. Now you're talking about the second half of the decade, then carry over to 2031 for now? That's 7 years out. When you trade your future off, that's exactly what happens. That's why they are operating at the accelerated and extreme turnover. They are darn near on the verge of falling over the cliff. This is where this franchise is. When you give up your own talent, it's going to show down the line and fast. You can have 2 superstars and you still gonna see the void left over, because it's the way that the first guy, the main guy, was brought to the team, and then the way that the other guy was acquired via trade is the reason why this franchise is struggling. It's been extreme since day one. Players were traded to create cap space. Other players were traded to try to bring in superstars. When it doesn't work out, everybody's going to get the blame. Everybody's going to take the hit. Everybody going to be deemed the scapegoat. Everybody, man. Because the plan has never really panned out. It's never really executed in the manner of which they thought. They were led to overlook the changing landscape of the NBA entering this decade. A lot of fans were led to believe that young talent was no longer needed and that you can rely on veterans to come up in here, like hired hands, let's say. Kind of like, rentals. And they tried to front run their way to a championship. No real attrition. No real major obstacles. They wanted a cakewalk situation. And outside of that 1 year, because it seemed like that was the trade-off was the Lakers would be insured of 1 year, but it's at the expense of 10. And it could stretch beyond that when all this is over. But the impression people creating this dilemma wants to give the impression that the team is relevant, that they have returned back to their former glory, and they have not. You cannot shortcut this process, especially in this Western Conference, where Oklahoma City claimed the number 1 seed because they stayed the course. The Denver Nuggets won the championship last year, first time in franchise history doing so. They did not repeat because it's hard to repeat, but they finished the number 2 seed in the West. The Minnesota Timberwolves, who advanced to the playoffs in the first round the previous 2 years, this season they generate the number 1 defense in the league. Finished number 3rd seed in the conference, advanced to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2004, prime Kevin Garnett. The Dallas Mavericks, who made a midseason acquisition to bolster their front line, to improve their defense and perimeter scoring, they advanced to the finals. The New Orleans Pelicans won more games this season for the first time since Anthony Davis in 2018. I can give you example after example after example. And Memphis Grizzlies will be back and they will be whole. And they just drafted the best center in the during the lottery in Zach Edey. Playoff level. Houston has improved. Sacramento is looking to improve. They've won 48 games and 47 games respectfully. So what I'm trying to say is you cannot shortcut the game, because eventually you're going to shortcut your way right out the landscape. And that's what's happening, man. But fans keep feeding into a sinking ship. An all-time story franchise. This is different from the down years, once Kobe Bryant, the late great Kobe Bean Bryant, injured his Achilles. Well, of course, when your franchise player of the past 15 years suffers a career-threatening injury like that, of course you're going to decline. And especially when a trade featuring Chris Paul was blocked. That created a 5-year tailspin that necessitated that the franchise start over. And this is why they drafted all their young talent. When you extract that from the equation, you really don't even have a present. You don't have a present tense. The past gets misrepresented, distorted, whatever you want to call it, to justify what's going on now. And then when it really starts to fail, then you hear voices talk about, well, Lakers have had a history of firing coaches, which we have not, especially when it comes to established head coaches. The coaches that they are really referring to are interim coaches. When the Phil Jacksons of the world, the Pat Rileys of the world, coaches like that step down. Rudy Tomjanovich, who was dealing with a illness. Luke Walton was signed for 5 years. He would have did all 5 years if he wasn't forced out by that guy. And it's frustrating to see blame casted on this front office solely, man, when they've done everything. And it's never enough, and it'll never be enough. The Lakers are caught in the matrix of this whole push to try to push someone to the top of the mountain, the top of the pantheon, whose career and his resume does not warrant that. And that's why all this chaos ensues at this very moment. And it's the saddest thing I've seen in sports, man. It's the saddest. And like I said, this is really just, at this point, it's just a matter of, do fans want this? Do they want to be able to continue rooting for this team after all this over? Because this whole thing can fold for years. That's what's at stake. And the front office is going to take all the blame, man. And the guy that's really causing all this, he's going to get a pass. That's the way it's set up. And that's why it wasn't worth it. And they'd have been better off continuing to build and show belief in their young talent and their real players. And the Lakers would not be in this position. They would have a second half of a decade to look forward to. Fans really don't understand what was given up. That supported this. They really don't understand what was given up. You cannot forego. Cornerstone players who you draft should be playing for your team for at least 7 to 8 years. Then you take it from there. Brandon Ingram was traded away after his 3rd year. That was severely disrupted, having to play with that guy, where it neutralized his ability to continue growing as a player. And he was traded at the age of 21. Was sorely missed is that young core. And I know it's 150% true. They played, they tails off, they gave us 150%. They was all professionals, and they all represent this franchise with pride. I don't sense none of that right now. Nothing like that. Nothing. It's not even real. It's not even real. That's why so much chaos. And that's why there's such a lack of clarity as to the reality of the situation. They want the front office to continue turning water into wine and to create miracles, to pull superstars right out the air as if this is some type of fairy tale or some type of animated cartoon series, when the reality is this is professional basketball and we compete and operate in the same league as the other 29 teams. This is why it's hard for them and difficult to attract a key free agent. No, they do not want to be a part of this because they see that the ship is sinking. This is heavy, man. I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I'm not trying to cast aspersions. This is real, man. What's at stake is a all-time franchise. Who's going to step in and put it into this? That is the question. We need to understand the extreme pressure that this GM is under. It's enough to make every pipe in the house burst. This is what we're dealing with. So the question is, do we want to continue to see this charade? Or do we want to see this organization crash into the proverbial iceberg? So I just want to drop that real quick. That golden nugget. Until next time, this is JB for BTB Behind the Bench.